to the Nosebleed Seats. I'm the Mad Conservative Crimefighter. Tonight, 2011 has drawn to a close, and it is time to take a look back at the top 10 news stories of the St. Louis wrestling scene. But first, we're going to take a look at a couple of other significant news events that have happened in downstate Illinois and Missouri.
First, some of the notable mentions that made news in 2011. Ace Hawkins was voted by the readers of Pro Wrestling Illustrated as the 2011 Rookie of the Year. Ace had already been ranked number 339 on the 2011 PWI 500. New Midwest Wrestling had to change the name of its annual May show, Capital Punishment, to Sports Entertainmania after WWE registered a trademark on the name. Excessive spring rains wreaked havoc among many river towns in the Midwest. Metropolis, Illinois, home of Superman, is home to two Southern Illinois promotions, Chaos Pro Wrestling and Renegade Pro Wrestling, who had to call off shows as their venues were overtaken by floodwaters. Renegade Pro Wrestling, who ran 3 times a week, reopened after floodwaters receded, allowing cleanup. Renegade Pro also had changes in ownership and moved out of the facility it called home the past couple of years. IWA Mid-South wrestler Nick Gage pled guilty to second-degree robbery and was sentenced to 5 years in prison for robbing a PNC bank in Collingswood, New Jersey in late 2010. His guilty plea was part of an agreement for a lesser sentence handed down in April. During the robbery, Gage handed a note to a female employee at the bank demanding money and got approximately $3,000. Following the robbery, Gage and his girlfriend went to Atlantic City to gamble. He'll be eligible for parole in 2015 after serving 85% of his 5-year sentence. Gage last appeared for IWA Mid-South in Bellevue for the 2010 King of the Death Matches. Mike Rapata Jr., the son of former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Colorado Kid and is a native of Carrier Mills in southern Illinois, was critically injured in July after leaving a vehicle driven by Derek Lane that went off the road in a possible DUI incident. Rapata Jr., who may have been intoxicated himself, was walking along a rural road when he passed out and was struck by a passing motorist and dragged 75 feet. Rapata Jr., age 23, was transferred to a medical center in Chicago in September, where he has laid in a coma-like state for months with multiple broken bones. Fundraisers have been held in Nashville, Tennessee at NWA Main Event to help cover medical bills. Disclosure News, who has extensively covered this story, indicates Derek Lane is in trouble with the law again. Several Central Illinois wrestlers invade the Memphis area. The Don K. Morales led a caravan of talent from MBWA and other promotions to compete for All-Star Wrestling Federation and New Experience Wrestling. Likewise, Memphis talent appeared at MBWA events. Wrestlers that made the trip for a several-month period got a look by WWE executive Harvey Whippleman. MBS standouts Derek Moss and Randy Ray managed to capture the ASWF tag titles, and a few of the MBWA titles changed hands when they were defended down south. The St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame chose not to induct any new members in 2011, and folks associated with the Hall have indicated it has no more room. Fans are asking why St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame is limited to just the NWA Chase era and will not induct anyone associated with the post-Chase era, no matter what they achieve in their careers, such as current WWE superstars Matt Sydal and Randy Orton. Matt Sydal, known these days as Evan Bourne, captured the WWE World Tag Team Championship with his partner Kofi Kingston, and they named themselves Air Boom. Sydal, however, was suspended earlier this year for a wellness violation, but the WWE opted not to strip the tag titles, and he is still a tag champion. Another St. Louis WWE superstar, Randy Orton, continued to rack up WWE World titles in 2011. The future Donovan Ruddock made his debut in Florida Championship Wrestling in a tag team match back in April. However, following that match, the future has been sidelined most of the year with a knee injury that required surgery to repair. 2 local area talents were selected to compete in the 2011 edition of Tough Enough. Dreamwave personality Juliet the Huntress competed under her real name, Ivelisse Velez. She was eliminated in Week 6 due to injury during a training session that kept her from performing up to standards. She has since signed a WWE developmental contract and is at FCW under her new name of Sophia Cortez. Michelle Dighton, who wrestled for the former Crossroad Championship Wrestling, but put wrestling on hold for her modeling career, competing on America's Next Top Model, aired Tough Enough in an attempt to fulfill her first dream of being a WWE superstar. Dighton, who was Survivor contestant and TNA personality Johnny Fairplay, had a daughter, discovered early on that she couldn't easily pick things back up after being away from the ring 5 years. Dighton pulled out of the competition in Week 3 after deciding raising her daughter was far more important. Fairway announced via Twitter he has separated from Dighton in June. Jackie Wong pled guilty to amended charges of second-degree murder in a plea bargain agreement for his role in a heinous triple murder in 2009 that claimed the lives of Jeff and Glenda Smith and St. Louis wrestler Napalm Zachary Porter. Joshua Reyes, the ringleader in the murders, pled guilty to 3 counts in May 2010 and was given a life sentence without parole. 2 other young men still face charges in connection to the triple homicide. Benjamin Stidham and Stephen Bakoya have had their trials delayed multiple times, pushing the start back to fall of 2012. Wong was scheduled to be sentenced on December the 5th, anywhere from 10 years to life. Northern Illinois wrestler, the Pocket Rocket Eric Mark, suddenly passed away at his home in Morse, Illinois in June at the age of 30. Marks had brief runs downstate for New Midwest Wrestling and New Breed, but really made his name at NWA Revolution and various Chicago promotions. Several downstate Illinois wrestlers make the PWI 500. Brandon Aarons ranked at 417 but had to stop wrestling entirely due to serious spinal deterioration that has left him with great difficulty getting around. He has been in rehab for the last 7 months. Best wishes to Brandon Aarons for healing and a return to the ring. Other names making the list for the first time include Blade Harker Dirge at 386, former New Midwest personality and host of the infamous $5 Wrestling, Mr. Elite Jake Manning at 382, Mike Seidel at 369, Dreamwave wrestler Steve Boz at 353, Zero Gravity members Brett Kakia at 352, and CJ Esparza at 344. The earlier mentioned Ace Hawkins at 339, Shane Hollister at 312, Matt Cage at 309, Dan Lawrence at 308, Mason Beck at 292, Mr. 450 Hammett at 279. And making returns to the list again this year include Brandon Espinoza at 329, Kyle O'Reilly at 232, Jimmy Jacobs at 108, Matt Seidel at 69, Ted DiBiase Jr. at 68, Tyler Black, aka Seth Rollins at 53, and Randy Orton at number 2.
We will be continuing the top 10 wrestling news stories of the St. Louis wrestling scene in just a moment. But now it's time to look at the new MBS Top 25 and Tag Team 5 for January 2012.
Catch the Nosebleed Seats TV on demand anytime. Just go to stlwc.lip.tv, select your episode, watch and enjoy the show. The MBS TV on stlwc.lip.tv.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we continue on with our countdown of the top 10 news stories of the St. Louis wrestling scene in 2011.
Number 10, Ian Rotten is forced to sell IWA Mid-South to new owners following an explosive 2-hour podcast. Ian Rotten appeared as the guest of Jerry Weissman on As the Bell Rings to confirm or deny a number of issues and rumors that have been raised over the years. Weissman inquired about what happened with the late J.C. Bailey selling pain pills and Rotten being barred from attending his funeral. He also inquired about the circumstances with Mickey Knuckles leaving IWA Mid-South. During the show, Joe Bailey, the father of J.C. Bailey, Mickey Knuckles, Bull Payne, Half-Breed Billy Graham, and Madman Pondo all called in to confront Rotten for past transgressions. At the end of the podcast, Weissman became angry at Rotten for refusing to apologize for anything that he had done. The fallout from the podcast was swift, as a ton of complaints to the owners of a couple of venues forced the cancellation of new show dates that were booked. IWA Mid-South was purchased by 3 men who had been associated with the company for years: Vince Jones, Kevin Adams, and Mike Miller. Rumors persist that Rotten still books for IWA Mid-South, but could be nothing more than an advisory role to assist the new owners reconstitute the organization. IWA Mid-South ran all of its 2011 shows in Bellevue, Illinois. Number 9, 3 promotions opened in Springfield within a 2-month period. In one of the more frustrating turn of events for the MBS in raising the status of Central Illinois Wrestling, the 6-sided ring used by Supreme League of Wrestling was put up for sale in favor of a traditional squared circle. Joe Burge, who hosts an internet radio program on Southern Fried Radio under the moniker Hillbilly Joe and is known for bizarre, irrational on-air rants, decided to purchase the ring months after appearing at a pro wrestling epic event as a manager and become a promoter. Despite having no experience in the wrestling business, he set up the ring outside on his property and proceeded to hold wrestling training. The first show was held at Club Chrome under the name Redneck Wrestling Organization, headlined by WWE alumni Mr. Hughes. The first show drew 3 digits and used a wide variety of people of various skill levels. Burge himself attempted to wrestle a match, but quickly went down injured. Rex Gill, who booked the matches, was fired after the event for incompetence on how he booked the show. Yours truly appeared on the podcast show of WMAY personality Ray Lytle to talk about the event, but Burge called into the program and got into a cursing fit at the mention of Gill and disagreements with my observations. Rex Gill shortly thereafter got together with Onslaught Mike Pruitt to open Wrestling's Ultimate Order and run it in the same venue as RWO. Their first show used a bunch of untrained backyarders connected to Pruitt from Danville, calling themselves the Halls Brothers Wrestling Alliance, mixing them with legit talent. After running in Danville, unprofessionalism reigned as someone went into business for themselves against a new breed wrestler that resulted in a confrontation in the parking lot after the event. Rex Gill ended up restarting the promotion under the name Future of Pro Wrestling, then restarted again under the name HHCW. Meanwhile, several men previously associated with Capital City Championship Wrestling got together to open Pinfall Wrestling Association, with their first event being one of the worst shows I had ever seen, with several people involved that hadn't wrestled in years. The unhinged Joe Burge, for his part, tried to wrestle a few more times, but in each instance could not finish the match due to injury. Fellow Southern Fried Radio host Rhino Ranch attempted to get involved in an RWO match between Galvin Alexander and Jonathan Napier with a pie that backfired badly, with the show being stopped in a major chew-out in the locker room. Burge himself was removed from a later pinfall wrestling event after becoming intoxicated, wandered into the locker room, then tried to get into the ring at the end of the match. As it stands, HHCW plans to run twice a month in Lincoln and Springfield. PWA greatly cleaned up its roster and sent folks to train in Decatur. Bird still has the six-sided ring set up outside in his backyard. There are other aspects to this that we didn't cover here, but we have 8 more stories to go in the last half of the program. Number 8. Dreamwave personality Juice Robinson signs with WWE. Robinson made his first appearance on WWE TV as a bodyguard for Michael Cole on an episode of SmackDown. Since then, he's been competing for Florida Championship Wrestling under the name CJ Parker, winning tag titles with Donnie Marlowe. Tyler Black, who signed with WWE in 2010, wrestled at FCW under the name Seth Rollins and made his WWE debut in late December with wins against Tyson Kidd. Number 7. Pro Wrestling Prestige loses its prestige. Wrestler D.A. Morrison, who organized shows for IWA Unlimited in Central Illinois for 2010, wanted to run events independently and began running under the PWP banner with their own championships and with higher level talent. The first couple events didn't draw as many people as they needed to, so PWP began sponsoring matches at IWA Unlimited events in Mount Vernon. This arrangement worked okay for many weeks, but issues arose when PWP ran its own card in Mason, Illinois, with Christopher Daniels headlining that drew only 30 people. PWP announced twice that it folded when it couldn't pay its bills, but retracted those statements. The end came when D.A. Morrison was involved in a car crash on the way to the Saturday, December IWAU event, where he sponsored Domino Clifton and could not get to the venue or wire the money to pay the talent. He was fired from IWAU shortly thereafter from causing undue heat to the organization. IWAU no longer runs shows at the Griffin's Den in Mount Vernon due to the building owners selling the property to a third party. IWA Unlimited will now run on Sundays at its Olney location. Number 6. Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling moves to divorce. Mid-Missouri Wrestling Alliance signs that the MWR Promotion of the Year was forming cracks started when Ben Simon was told his services as webmaster and ring announcer were no longer needed at SICW. SICW also created its own Classic Championship and instituted an over-the-top rope disqualification rule, a rule that has not been used by any major American promotion in over 15 years. SICW also started separate TV programming with commercial sponsors hosted by Larry Matisak. Apart from the MMWA Wild World of Wrestling program, ignored the existence of established championships. Tim Miller made a public statement saying that he was resigning from the SICW side of the organization and explained what all went on during an episode of the MBS podcast. Surprisingly, Herb Simmons, who promotes SICW, ignored all public statements made by Miller and focused his criticism on Ben Simon. As it stands, both promotions are still loosely considered one company, sharing much of the same roster, but SICW books more outside talent because they are not subject to the Missouri Athletic Commission rules. Number 5. The Gathering of the Juggalos continue to frustrate Hardin County residents. The festival put on by the Insane Clown Posse on the Hog Rock campgrounds owned by Tim York once again saw several arrests of Juggalos trying to enter the grounds with various drugs. One man was pulled from the Ohio River, dead from an alcohol or drug-related drowning. Security on the grounds was actually reduced despite the assaults on performers Tila Tequila and Method Man the prior year. Juggalos, however, did not attack performer MC Hammer, though Charlie Sheen had trash thrown at him. Grounds owner Tim York absolutely refuses to allow police on the grounds to deal with the crime problems. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has gone so far as to classify the Juggalos as a gang. The wrestling events were a disaster as major technical problems delayed the start of the Legends Eye pay-per-view and Blaymania by hours, with miscues, confusion, no-shows, and short matches plaguing the cards. Number 4. Central Illinois Wrestling sees the closure of MBWA and GAW. Great American Wrestling announced it was ceasing operations after its July show at the Heart of Illinois Fair. The promotion opened in 1994, running in and around the Decatur area, promoted by J.C. Michaels and Benjamin Taylor. The wrestling product varied wildly over its run, and in 2010, Michaels was ready to let the company go away quietly. However, Jonathan Napier offered to keep the company going and took over the organization in the spring and promoted shows in Peoria. The new JAW bore a resemblance to Next Generation Wrestling and aspects of IWA Mid-South. However, Napier came to the conclusion that running a wrestling company was too much to handle, and GAW came to an end. New Breed Wrestling Alliance announced they were ending their 6-year run in East Central Illinois as the promoter, the Don Kato Morales, made plans to move to Nevada to pursue an acting career and open a new promotion in Las Vegas. MBWA, through its run, produced its own television program and used a variety of WWE and TNA alumni. Bloody Harker Dirge trained many of the MBWA roster, and Morales took caravans of talent down to the Memphis area to perform. MBWA super shows in Rantoul and festival events drew great numbers. MBWA won the MBS Promotion of the Year Award in 2009. Number 3, All-American Pro Wrestling announces TV deal with WSIL in Harrisburg. The program airs bi-weekly on Saturday afternoons, hosted by Chris Hogstrom and Kevin Huntsberger. Episodes are taped at the Harley-Davidson Black Diamond Warehouse in Marion, Illinois. Prior episodes can be viewed online on Vimeo. Following the announcement, the founder of AAPW, Sean Chambers, has taken a lesser role in the company, passing promoting duties to Hogstrom while Greg Anthony handles booking. AAPW later found itself at odds with Sinclair Broadcasting when they tried to book ROH World Champion Davey Richards, as Sinclair bought Ring of Honor and began syndicating ROH TV in the fall as well. Sinclair forbid ROH talent from appearing on other wrestling events broadcast on TV or pay-per-view. That decree seems to have waned, as AAPW has booked former ROH TV champion El Generico to appear at their next event in Marion on January 14th. Number 2, the NWA strips the Sheik of the World Heavyweight title, setting up a chain of unintended consequences. Joseph Cabibo, who is the hand-picked successor of Ed Chuman to become the new chairman of NWA Midwest and wrestles currently as the new Sheik, won the world title from Colt Cabana in the spring in a major power play. Scrap Iron Adam Pearce had NWA Executive Director Robert Trowbridge, with the backing of NWA Hollywood Director David Marquez, book a World Heavyweight title match on a Sunday between him and the champion Sheik at the Ohio State Fair in July. The problem was, however, the Sheik was already booked for a 10-day tour to Japan after winning the Pro Wrestling 01 World title. It was to be the NWA World Heavyweight title's first voyage to Japan in 9 years, but Adam Pearce couldn't wait to get the belt back around his waist. So after having Trowbridge announce the title defense and being told Sheik was not canceling his tour to Japan, on Pearce's whim, he proceeded to announce in a press release the very next day that the Sheik is being stripped of the NWA Championship. As to how desperate Pearce wanted to be champion again, it went to the extent that Colt Cabana had to use a replica title belt during his run as world champion because Pearce didn't want to give up the real belt. Greg Price, who promoted the Ohio Fair show, came forward and fiercely denied charges leveled at Trowbridge, saying he had written commitment from the Sheik back in May to work his shows in late July and early August before the Japan tour was booked. The fallout was immediate, as the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, Craig Classic, quickly announced on his Facebook page that he's vacating the title in protest of Trowbridge's action. He would not return the actual title belt, however, and a big legal fight ensued over legal ownership of the belt itself, which the NWA was not winning, and the new champion, Kevin Douglas, ended up getting a replacement belt. The NWA proceeded to fire NWA Midwest all over the want of a nail, Pearce winning the title back, which he won in a 4-way match. As a result, the promoter of NWA Midwest, Rico Mann, announced the formation of 01 Pro Wrestling USA in a partnership with Pro Wrestling 01 of Japan, and reinstated Sheik as World Champion and Classic as World Junior Heavyweight Champion. Rico Mann also retained ownership of all of the NWA Midwest Championship belts. The affiliates that made up NWA Midwest were split on which organization to go with. Brew City Wrestling, Supreme League of Wrestling, and NWA Underground of Indiana went with 0-1, while NWA Wisconsin, NWA Indiana, and Metro Pro Wrestling out of Kansas City chose to stay with the NWA, and Dynamo Pro Wrestling, Extreme Limit Wrestling in Wisconsin, and Liberty States Wrestling in New Hampshire, Massachusetts went independent. And the number one news story of 2011 for the St. Louis wrestling community: the Macho Man Randy Savage passes away at age 57. While Savage was an internationally recognized superstar, Savage's early days involved Major League Baseball as he was signed to a minor league contract with the St. Louis Cardinals and played for 4 seasons. Afterward, he was convinced to join Angelo Paffo's wrestling company, International Championship Wrestling, which ran shows all throughout the Midwest, including downstate Illinois, where he won championships at the Prairie Capital Convention Center in Springfield. Savage joined up with the World Wrestling Entertainment a few years later to become the superstar he became. Savage went on to win multiple world titles in WWE and WCW over his career.
As 2011 has come to a close, it's time to look back at some of the names and faces that the pro wrestling scene has lost over the last 12 months. And that was the top 10 St. Louis wrestling news stories for 2011. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope that you get out to as many wrestling shows as you can during 2012. It's shaping up to be a great year already, as it always should be. I'm the Mad Conservative Crimefighter. We'll see you next week on the Nosebleed Seats.